It's a mobile game and an MMO. It's a mobile game and an MMO. It's a mobile game and an MMO. Yesterday, the Blizzcon opening ceremonies were held to some fairly chill response. On the whole, it was a fairly weak BlizzCon. This is the kind of BlizzCon where many prior iterations of Blizzard would have just stayed home and worked on projects. But for whatever reason, they decided to host this BlizzCon feeling like they had enough big announcements. On the whole, the show's been good so far, especially on the esports side. I'm a big fan of StarCraft esports, and there have been some really, really cool things happening in the esports arena. And things like Community Night and the costume contest were fantastic. Just a lot of the fans just absolutely knocking it out of the park today. But the opening ceremonies is probably the worst opening ceremonies that I have seen at BlizzCon so far, with basically only a handful of high notes to it. We began, I think, to the relief of most of us, with our usual introduction from our old friend Mike Morhaime. It's really good to see that even though he stepped down from the position of president of the company, that he's still showing up to talk to the fans and still maintaining his position as head speaker of the opening ceremonies. It was still a little on the poignant side to hear him announced as one of the founders of Blizzard instead of president and CEO of Blizzard Entertainment, but nonetheless, it was good to see Mike again. Unfortunately, the torch handling was not as well done. Very shortly into his presentation, Mike brought J. Allen Brack onto stage. And at first this seemed like this might be a nice, touching, good moment, a moment where they were going to hand off, the custody of Blizzard in front of the fans and, kind of help put us all at ease as to what we could expect. Unfortunately, I got very much the impression from everything that was said that they weren't talking to us. A lot of the ceremony had kind of this feel of prepared statements. And it was the kind of things you tell shareholders to basically convince them to not be worried about these big transitions. So it felt kind of awkward that they were up on stage in front of all of these fans, in front of all of the people like myself viewing from home, and it really didn't feel like they were talking to us. And things only got more awkward, and I don't know if it was just the nerves, because J. Allen Brack has been on the BlizzCon stage before. I don't know if he's ever done an opening ceremonies. I can't remember. But he's done other things for like the WoW stages and stuff like that. But he felt super distant and awkward and stiff as he was doing his presentation. And so I don't think that really helped things as far as the fans were concerned. He also didn't get a lot of really major announcements for himself, which is, depending on your view, either a good or a bad thing. He first got to announce 2 projects for StarCraft 2. The fact that Zeratul will be available as a commander, and a new map that is going to be entering the pool. He also got to announce the new patch for Battle for Azeroth, Tides of Vengeance, with a beautiful cinematic in the usual Blizzard standard of excellence. I really enjoyed this new cinematic between Anduin and Saurfang. So that's basically all he did on stage, other than, again, those what felt like some very much pre-prepared statements. Fortunately, things got passed off pretty quickly after that. They first attempted to go to the Hearthstone stage, only to run into some sound issues. And then the event was quickly saved by definitely the MVP of the opening ceremonies, Jeff Kaplan. Kaplan has always been an entertaining presenter to watch, but I think he either read the situation or they knew ahead of time that the handing over event might cause a bit of coldness with the audience. And so whatever the case, he stepped up and knocked it out of the park. His presentation was entertaining, it was funny, it got several good belly laughs out of me, and he definitely got what, in my opinion, is the most exciting announcement of the evening, which was the unveiling of a new Overwatch cinematic for McCree and the 29th Overwatch character, Ashe. And I am actually really excited about Ashe. Again, I still need to actually be able to play FPS, but that's beginning to look more and more like a possibility. But Ashe is very much the style of FPS character that I really enjoyed back when I was big into games like Halo and Half-Life. So it's my hope that she will turn out to be the kind of DPS character that I will enjoy playing. So now I'll finally have, basically a full kit of characters that I really like between Mercy, Moira, Reinhardt, and Symmetra. So I'll now have a full range of characters to go to depending on the needs of the party. Oh, and Brigitte. I'm still very interested in playing Brigitte. I only played Mercy in the beta, so I don't know what to say there. I'm mostly support. That's how I prefer to play. I'm a support character. I play support in LoL. I play support in WoW. Or tank. Occasionally I'll tank. And in fact, I loved Braum in League of Legends because he's almost combination support and tank. From there, Pete Stillwell and the WoW Classic team took over the show, and for a moment I really was expecting that we were getting the announcement. A lot of us Diablo fans were really, really hoping for, because the way he spoke, with the concept of another Titan being brought in, it really did seem like the kind of introduction you might give Diablo or Diablo 2 Remaster. However, we are getting Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3 Reforged, and I gotta say, I'm very hopeful for it. I loved Warcraft 3. I like the fact that they're expanding the mod kit for Warcraft 3. Supposedly they're making some tweaks to the writing to help fill in some of the gaps in the story that have occurred between Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft. But I'm not too interested in it because I feel like I played my fill of Warcraft 3. I enjoyed Warcraft 3, but Warcraft 3 was not the RTS that really gripped me from Blizzard. I was definitely much more into StarCraft than I was into Warcraft 3. So I'm not particularly interested in that. But I am still excited, and I'm still glad we're getting this Warcraft 3 remaster, and the remaster itself looks gorgeous. Oh, does it look good. From there, Ben Thompson took the stage on the main stage, literally seeming to run over from the Hearthstone stage, so that he can make his presentation for the new Hearthstone expansion. This new expansion, Rastakhan Rumble, is going to feature the trolls as its primary race, and it seems to be taking the kind of lighthearted take with the trolls that Hearthstone, as a general rule, takes with most of its subject matter. This is not going to be a serious or dire expansion. It has some interesting looking mechanics in the fact that basically they're going to be tying each of the classes to a Loa and a totem for that Loa. So that seems kind of cool, but right now for me there's more interesting things going on the Magic the Gathering side. So if I'm going to be jumping into a card game again, that's where it's going to be. But it is nice to still see that Hearthstone is releasing continuous content and continuous single-player content. This expansion will apparently include a large single-player section. And then Wyatt Chang took the stage. And he looked super excited to begin with. And he was full of life and energy. And you could really tell he thought he had an announcement to give us. And that energy died shortly after the announcement. Because our Diablo announcement, the game and project, which Blizzard wanted to hype us up for, but not Diablo 4 levels of hype, is Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is a mobile game. Now, I predicted there was a pretty good chance that Activision would want to see if they could get Blizzard to break into the mobile market. But as I said in a previous video, I'm not too interested in mobile games. And I think the community is kind of with me on this. Now, to be fair, this could turn out to be a nice surprise. Couldn't get hands on it, since I'm obviously streaming from home. I don't get to be one of the people to go up to one of their demo stages and try Diablo Immortal. But the whole situation doesn't fill me with hope. So first of all, it's a mobile game. And although Blizzard is apparently working on multiple Diablo projects, there's going to be a lot of fans who are going to be asking that question of, wouldn't the resources be better spent on a full Diablo 4 and making sure Diablo 4 is as good as possible and does not do to the fan base what Diablo 3 did? Also, with all of these little hints and teases that seem to point at a remaster, why are we not getting a remaster? I mean, could we at least get an announcement on that? Like, I can even understand if maybe there's still some legal issues involved with publishing a remaster of Diablo 2, even though Blizzard Entertainment and Activision still currently have the rights to distribute at least Diablo 2. Same thing with the original Diablo. You know, is there a rights issue there? I mean, since they were both made under Blizzard North, which was eventually kind of traded hands around and didn't fully become a part of Blizzard in time for everything that happened. You know, is there something in the way? It would be nice to know if there is something in the way, and that's why we haven't seen a remaster yet. Especially since the fan-made remaster for StarCraft Arcade has ended. But the big thing is just everything about Diablo Immortal is setting off alarm bells. First, let's start with the title, Diablo Immortal. This is ringing bells really, really hard of jumping on current marketing trends. I mean, people were already making jokes after E3 with Halo Infinite and Doom Eternal. So now we have Diablo Immortal. That title really sounds like a marketing decision. Like, really, really sounds like a marketing decision and not a decision that was made by someone who we trust at Blizzard. Next, we've got the style of game. It's going to be an action RPG, MMO. And we all know that especially in the Asian marketplace, MMOs are huge. MMOs are one of the big ways that mobile game companies put pressure on their consumer bases to spend money. By using that social pressure that is naturally created by being part of a community, it puts more pressure for your avatar, your representation of you in this world space, to look as cool as you can make it. Which of course drives all kinds of microtransaction sales. Additionally, the goal that Wyatt Cheng has presented is that this is going to be a continuously updated game. In other words, this is going to be a live service model game. Now, since live services have become kind of a dirty word in the gaming community, obviously that's not how they referred to it. But he kept saying how this is where we want to have it when on release. This is where we're going to be to start. We're going to be releasing new zones and new classes and new quests and new stories. The whole thing just reeks of what Activision Blizzard failed to do with Diablo 3, but you can tell they wanted to do. To turn the Diablo franchise into another source of recurring revenue for the company. And just as that nearly destroyed Diablo 3, that doesn't put us in a really good situation for this game. And then past all of that, there's just so much about this game that just seems contrived. So the basic premise, the basic idea is strong. Tyrael destroyed the World Stone. What happened in that space of time between the destruction of the World Stone and the events of Diablo 3? Because you had this 20-year period between the two games. Now, the previous impression, though, that Blizzard had tried to give us was that nothing happened. At least nothing noteworthy enough to really drive the story at that point. Tyrael was recalled to the heavens, so his story had to be dealt with separately from the world of Sanctuary. You know, as far as Mount Arya, it was shattered and the barbarians were displaced. But the forces of evil kind of went quiet after the destruction of the primevals, as Belial and Asmodan began plotting their strike. Now is the World Stone gone? And I mean, that's why we have things like Leah in Diablo 3 being so doubtful of the events and so skeptical, because the events from Diablo 2 had started to fade into memory. They were events that she had not even been really alive for. She grew up in this world where, yeah, there were monsters and threats in the wilderness, but it was to her, she viewed these threats the same way we would view lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Any kind of story that involves more supernatural threats coming into reality during that 20-year period, well, that kind of... And then there's the characters who we're going to be playing. So, one of my initial reactions when I saw this is that this might be a new cast of characters. Or it was some of the silhouettes making me even think we were seeing some returning favorites from Diablo 2. Because when you think about it, you know, that kind of makes sense, right? If some new adventure or some new story needs to pick up at the end of Diablo 2, well, wouldn't that story then involve the same characters from Diablo 2? But these characters feel like the Diablo 3 characters. In fact, one of the things that Wyatt said we were getting is we were going to see Vala in the origin of the Demon Hunters. Well, that doesn't particularly work well with the storyline that we're seeing so far. I mean, the Demon Hunter in Diablo 3 is an adult. And the impression is that, in fact, I believe it's actually part of the Demon Hunter's backstory, is that they had just finished their training under another Demon Hunter. So, if that is a second generation or even third generation Demon Hunter, how can we see the birth of the Demon Hunter Order only 20 years ago? And then you've got things like, there's a Crusader. A Zakarum Crusader. But the Crusaders returned in Diablo 3. They'd vanished. Now, maybe it's supposed to be a paladin, but if it's supposed to be a paladin, why isn't it the Zakarum paladin from Diablo 2? Do you see where I'm getting at? How so much of this just doesn't feel... It feels like they're just throwing stuff at a wall and just trying to jam it into the lore. Then we get to the game itself. So, I can kind of see an action RPG working on a tablet device. I don't want to play one on a phone. Wyatt kept using phone. He kept saying phone, phone, phone. I don't want to play this game on a phone. I can see playing it on a tablet, a decent sized tablet, but I don't want to play this game on a phone. Maybe you could make a tap-based action RPG work on a phone, but that's not what they're doing. They're going with I guess you could call it a twin-stick design, but even that's not quite right. So, I'm not particularly fond of twin-stick controls on mobile. First of all, to me, the mobile platform its control scheme is geared towards any kind of gameplay where you can interact by touching the screen in a meaningful way. So any kind of gameplay where you can slide objects around with your finger, or one of my favorite examples, one of the first big mobile games when the mobile platform first started exploding was Fruit Ninja. This whole concept of you're going to slide your finger across the screen and each one of those is going to be a katana slice. That whole concept of being able to touch something on your screen or interact with your screen in these very natural feeling finger swipes, that's when mobile works. That's why so many of the best and most popular mobile games have been games like Candy Crush, where you're swiping along the jewels with your finger. Certain touch interfaces also work. I think that's one of the reasons why Clash of Clans was so successful. But to me, Twin Stick has always been a workaround to try to get a control scheme that is just not meant for the platform to work on the platform. Twin Stick controls on a console, or for that matter if you're using a controller on a PC, they're very intuitive because of the way the sticks move under your thumbs. That feedback doesn't exist on a mobile device. So all you can do is just train your muscle memory to use the sticks properly so that your thumbs are always in the right positions so that you can move the stick the way you need to move it when you need to move it. And since everyone's hands are different sizes, there isn't even something they can do of, well, if you're holding the tablet like this, your thumbs will naturally be in the right position to do that. That doesn't work. Because my thumbs are going to be longer than some other people's thumbs, and they're going to be shorter than other people's thumbs. So all you can do is just train yourself to put your thumbs where they need to be so that the fast-paced gameplay that Diablo is known for doesn't get your character killed because your thumb slipped out of position. But to make matters worse, like I said, it's kind of twin stick, except it's not. It's up to 6 sticks. You've got your main control stick on your left hand, and then you have 5 buttons under your right hand. Again, all of which you're going to have to train muscle memory to press. And then each of those buttons, depending on the skill you pick, can have a stick assigned to it to aim the skill. This control scheme seems like it is going to be extremely frustrating to anyone who hasn't grown up with a mobile platform. And to anyone who has, it's probably going to be even more frustrating because they've probably already developed certain muscle memory for how that right thumb is supposed to move on twin stick games. And now they've got to teach their hand completely different muscle memory with no true tactile feedback. And again, I don't have my hands on the game. I just don't see this game being able to control as tightly and smoothly as other Diablo games do, and the gameplay demo plays that out. All of the attacks and everything in the game are extremely telegraphed. The movement doesn't feel as fluid or tight or precise as other Diablo-style games. Now, to be fair, it does look like they've kind of realized that, so it looks like they've tried to push the weight and impact of the combat more to make up for that, so that the combat does feel a little bit more methodical as opposed to fast-paced. But is that the gameplay a Diablo fan's looking for? I mean, it just really feels like they decided they wanted to make a mobile action RPG and then didn't really actually think about what that meant. And one big example of this is during Q&A, a fan asked the question, will this game have hardcore? Because it's an MMO, right? Now, certain other MMO-style games in this genre can still have like central hub or group areas and still have hardcore enabled. But Wyatt told us they don't think the mobile marketplace is ready. Which again, to me says they just wanted to make a mobile game and didn't actually ask whether or not their game was a good fit for the platform. Because Diablo players want to play hardcore occasionally. Even and I mostly always play softcore, but even I still like to play hardcore occasionally. In fact, my only Diablo series on this channel is a hardcore series. So they literally said, we'll make a mobile game, we'll put Diablo on it, we're going to make an action RPG. Oh wait, we can't guarantee a sound hardcore experience on the mobile platform because of connectivity issues. Oh, we'll just scrap hardcore. But I think the big reason everyone's really disappointed about this announcement is something that apparently Blizzard has either forgotten or is refusing to acknowledge anymore. And that is that they still need to make up for Diablo 3. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who think Reaper of Souls made up for Diablo 3. No, Reaper of Souls fixed Diablo 3. It didn't make up for it. It took a game that was broken and it fixed it. Fixing a mistake is not the same thing as making up for a mistake. And to this day, though I enjoy Reaper of Souls, I still prefer to play the original Diablo 2 over it. And of course now, I play Path of Exile mostly. Why? Because the one thing that Blizzard lost in Diablo 3 that didn't really get fixed in Reaper of Souls, in my opinion, is progression. In my opinion, Diablo 3's progression system is still extremely weak. And I know for some, that doesn't matter. It's got just that right amount of progression to scratch that itch so that they can just enjoy the gameplay. And the gameplay is still extremely tight and enjoyable. But the simple fact of the matter is that Blizzard wanted to make a reoccurring revenue stream for Diablo 3. And it nearly destroyed the game. Now, I will still argue that the base Diablo 3 was still a good game. It wasn't up to Blizzard standards, but it was still a good game. Playing through Diablo 3 on normal was an enjoyable experience. And I sunk a lot of time into Diablo 3. Playing through it on Nightmare, it was still pretty enjoyable. It was Nightmare where the cracks started to show. Playing through it on Hell, well, that was where it really started to get frustrating. And then for me, Inferno was just ridiculous. It was the amount of grinding and what you were obviously supposed to do to progress in the game, which of course was spend money on the auction house. That to me just made Inferno all but unplayable. So, reoccurring revenue streams killed Diablo 3 for most people, and it eventually killed it for me. And those reoccurring revenue streams had to be scrapped, and the game had to be completely rebalanced. Jim Sterling goes out and constantly talks about how adding microtransactions to single-player games ruins the experience. And it's true. And we keep seeing it's true, but the thing is I've known it was true since Diablo 3. Before Diablo 3, I still held out hope that reoccurring revenue on a single-player experience could still be used to benefit the community. Diablo 3 to me proved that selling any kind of single-player power only benefits the pocketbook of the corporation. Doesn't benefit the game, and as we have begun seeing more and more, it doesn't benefit the development houses either. It just benefits the people at the top. And that is almost certainly what they're trying to do with Diablo Immortal. So they got into trouble with this community by trying to engage in a reoccurring revenue stream. And now it looks like they're trying to do it again. And the other thing is, if anyone was going to get our trust back for Diablo under Blizzard, it had to be Blizzard. But Blizzard's not entirely the house working on Diablo Immortal. It's Blizzard and NetEase. And if you don't know who NetEase is, they're one of, I think it's only 2 companies in the Asian marketplace that are basically dominating the mobile market right now. And those Asian mobile games, although some people really, really like them, most of the time they come over here and flop because the console and PC marketplace has no patience for the kind of revenue systems and progression systems that Asian mobile games have. They are just, they're bars upon bars and loot boxes upon loot boxes and currencies upon currencies. The whole system is designed to keep you confused, keep you constantly completing loops, and keep you constantly wanting to take that shortcut of spending some money on the game so that you can complete that loop or begin working on another loop that you actually care about. And that's the kind of developer that's working on Diablo Immortal. So they needed to make the announcement that said, Diablo fans, we haven't forgotten about you. And we know that some of you are still a little upset over what happened with Diablo 3. But hey, we're going to make it up to you. And instead, they basically said, we have learned nothing from history. We don't care about what you want, or what the fan base needs right now, or what the fan base is looking forward to or expecting. This is how we're going to turn the Diablo franchise into another reoccurring revenue franchise. Because World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and StarCraft 2 are not good enough to have as reoccurring revenue franchises. They all have to be reoccurring revenue franchises. What do you think we are? Some indie developer that, despite lack of resources, is just going to give you a free game? Are you nuts? We're a major corporation with ridiculous amounts of resources that has posted record-breaking profits. And one of the development houses underneath us is owner of the most successful media franchise of all time. How dare you think we could spare resources to just make a $60 game? How greedy of you.